there, everybody. I'm Avery Travis in for Bryan Mudd. A fan of South Plains politics? Well, here's your talking points for this week. Our ag producer is in the spotlight this week as the president announces $12 billion in bailout to help farmers affected by those retaliatory tariffs. And as the city grows, TxDOT is trying to keep up with Loop 88, but South Plains farmers say they don't like the way the road is heading.
From the studios of KMAC Television in Lubbock, your local election headquarters. This is Talking Points with Bryan Mudd, brought to you by Capital Mortgage Services.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Now, it's not often these days we talk about a beloved politician, but just recently we've lost two of them. Former City Councilman David Nelson and Delwyn Jones, who served this area in the state legislature for more than 30 years. Mr. Jones was a tireless public servant with a legislative career that spanned decades. Graduating from Texas Tech and serving in the Army Air Corps, he was a farmer before being elected to the state house for the first time in 1964. And after 12 years away from politics, he was re-elected to the House as a Republican in 1989. Prior to 2011, Jones had been the oldest member to serve in the Texas House.
I never thought Delwyn had any age on him at all, had probably more energy than any particular politician. And one of the things I'll always remember about Delwyn is how constituent-oriented he was. Delwyn took the time to take care of constituent issues, and he would go all the way into the top of an agency to solve a problem for a resident or for somebody who was a constituent of his.
I felt so honored.
His funeral will be held at Oakwood United Methodist Church Saturday morning. He'll then be buried at the State Cemetery in Austin. Reaction coming from all over, including Representative Dustin Burrows, who now serves the district Jones represented for so long. Burrows saying in part that as a legislator, his commitment to his constituents in his district was extraordinary. A sometimes political opponent, although more in technical terms, former Texas House Speaker Pete Laney saying Jones was always eager to serve the people, and he did a very fine job for a whole lot of years. Obviously, a difficult few weeks for a lot of people, but here to sit down and talk about it with us is the Republican Party chair here in town, Steve Evans. Thanks so much for being here.
No problem.
We appreciate you coming out.
A week I don't want to repeat.
Definitely has
soon.
been a lot from the political standpoint, but also just families and friends here on the South Plains of Delwyn Jones. What does this mean for the party? What's the legacy he leaves behind for the party and for the South Plains in general?
Well, for those that have been around long enough, Delwyn was just an iconic representative for West Texas, and we don't always agree with his politics. We had our differences, but he represented his constituency and this great part of West Texas very, very well, and just a great guy. Always a smile on his face, and we're definitely going to miss him.
I know very similar things could be said for David Nelson.
That one's man, that one's a lot harder to swallow. Just sudden, and didn't expect it, and I really don't know what else I can say, but we lost a great man and a great friend.
Definitely. I know he was a friend of the newsroom as well, so it's really been tough across the city. Also, there's never good timing for such tragedy, but poor timing as well, as he was running for that county court number 3 seat. So I know the party's now tasked with a pretty difficult job of filling that vacant spot on the ballot. It
is. It's a difficult job, and the thing that we've been very careful to do is to be respectful of David and his legacy, and we've purposely not discussed it any more than we have to, just for the timeline and so that we can continue the process. We've been careful not to discuss that until after the service and the family had had time to take care of David's matters, but now we've got to address it, so that's what's coming up.
So what will that process now look like for people in the public who may not know how that will all play out?
Well, that seat reverts back to the party, and you can think of it kind of like an elector in a presidential election. The precinct chairs of the Republican Party, which that is, and the chair, myself, is the executive committee. That task falls to us to elect someone through a nomination and vote process to replace David on the ballot that'll appear in November. So the committee last night we met and established some guidelines. So the first one, and there's a press release that you have out, is we're going to take an application, which will really just be a letter of intent from those seeking that office, no later than August 1st, 5 p.m. And then on the 6th, we're going to hear from those prospective nominees and then go into the voting process. So by the evening of August 6th, we will have made a selection.
And I know we have all of that information as well for people to know where to send those letters of intent if they're interested. So definitely a time of looking back and of mourning, but looking ahead as well. Hopefully someone wonderful to come in and lead on behalf of the party.
Yeah, and I expect more than just one applicant. We're not ready to confirm any yet, but you know, we've just put those rules out. But I'll look for there to at least be some healthy discussion about it.
Mr. Evans, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
We're turning now to last week's poll. We asked you, do you feel the security at your child's school is adequate or inadequate? 40% of you say the security is adequate, while 60% disagree and feel it's not quite enough. As always, thanks for weighing in. We'll get to this week's question a bit later on in the show. And still to come, Congressman Arrington is joining us to talk about the Farm Bill negotiations and to discuss the Trump administration's farm bailout. Stick with us.